Hi, this is Brendan Davis from Bedrock Games, and I'm here with Adam and Joel for another episode of Horror Express. And tonight we're doing The Shining, the 1980 Stanley Kubrick film. Again, I don't think this one needs any description. Do you guys agree with that, or do you want me to read the synopsis, or should we just move
Give
on
Um,
to
you
the discussion?
I'm curious what the synopsis is, but I mean, I think we all know what happens in this film. Like, even if you don't know because you've watched it or read the book or watched the other movie or the other
or the
other movie,
thousand memes.
yeah,
I mean,
I still think you just through pure cultural osmosis, you've got it at this point.
yeah. I
Yeah,
knew the plot of this movie like as a kid in school, just from people going
yeah,
around going red rum, red rum, red rum. So
yeah.
you know everybody knew like all that stuff, and then it was always kind of around in the air somehow. And there were so many pop culture references to it. So
Oh yeah,
I
there's
um
some
think too.
great
I
stuff
think
about it.
if you just break down the plot points, it's such a simple plot
yeah,
that make it into a quick ghost story you tell someone in school in 1 minute is actually pretty simple.
yeah, because he basically they go stay at a hotel together. He kind of goes crazy and tries to murder them with an axe, right? Like that's
And
the
that's it.
you know,
You
That's
just
yeah. And
that's
there
the
might
whole
be
that's
ghosts
it.
or there might not be ghosts involved. It's a little bit hard to know for sure.
I've
Which I'm
like
sure we'll
fun.
get into as it.
I've also watched
Okay.
Doctor Sleep, which is the sequel to this, which is a amazing. Like considering this movie's status, like it was directed
Mhm.
by a genius, what have you. The fact that they were able to make a sequel to it that I was actually like, wow, this is great.
Hmm.
Real high marks on that sequel too.
Yeah,
I
I do want to
almost
see
watched
that.
that. Yeah, I was gonna watch that before this, but then I'm like, no, I'll wait because I don't want to confuse anything or any of that. So, and
Yeah,
I haven't
I
read either of the books, so I'm just going by the
oh
movie
okay.
here. Yeah.
I've I've read the first book, not the
They can hear
second
you.
one.
You know,
Okay.
we're
Yeah.
podcasting.
What would you say?
Oh, she said she thought it sucked, but she's read the book, so
Oh,
she's a
okay.
snob.
Yeah, that was Joel's significant other weighing in.
But
Um,
yeah,
so
yeah. But yeah, Doctor Sleep. It's funny because I just finished watching it and it brought up Doctor Sleep as a recommendation. Watch this next. I'm like, I really
yeah,
want
it's
to right now,
recommended.
but I've got to do a podcast.
Yeah.
So,
It's
Yeah,
it's
I
really a
might
good
watch it
watch.
tonight or tomorrow, or maybe not.
uh-huh.
I don't know. Sometimes I get lazy and I never watch these things when I say I'm going to. Uh,
Yeah.
but I haven't read the books, and so I feel like that's kind of both an advantage and a disadvantage in
It's an
discussions like
advantage
this.
It
and
Is
a
is.
disadvantage,
I mean, and it's good to have people that haven't to discuss it for
yeah.
that point too.
So why don't we just talk about what we think of the movie first, and then we can go on to whatever topics we feel like discussing. Because I don't think this movie's so well known. I don't think we need anything heavily structured here. I think just an
No.
organic discussion. So I don't know, Joel. Why don't we start with you, since you're on the
Okay,
bottom of
cool.
my screen? I think it'll just be easier to.
I'm your bottom
Or
bitch, baby.
well, no, it's just that you're on the bottom right, and then Adam's above you, and then it's to me. So I think that's it's kind of a counterclockwise type thing.
All right, it works for me. I'm the biggest one in my screen because Skype likes to flatter me. See my whole
Mhm.
cat tree back here.
Yeah, I'm a tall oblong shape in my.
Yeah, I'm
so.
oblong too. Anyway, so I much like everyone on Earth, I know what was I knew it was in the movie prior to seeing it, but I hadn't seen it until I was about 20. I want to say this is one of the ones like I had a little mini renaissance in my early 20s where I knew about a bunch of films. Like there's this one, there was Clockwork Orange. There was a bunch by Terry Gilliam, like Brazil, that I'd never
Yeah.
seen before, and I'd heard about them. So I just kind of took that time in my life to watch and catch up on the classics. I watched The Godfather during that period. I'd seen it previously when I was younger, but like I hadn't really seen it as an adult. It's different whenever you're a grown up and you watch The Godfather. But this is one of the ones that I watched during that little movie renaissance for the first time, and I was shocked at how scary it was. I didn't know what to expect. I'd never seen a Kubrick film before this one. This is my first Kubrick film.
Okay.
I'd seen snatches of Clockwork Orange before because I used to stay up late watching HBO and Cinemax stuff like that when I was a teenager because it was the transgressive thing to do and there were sometimes boobs. And so every once in a while I'd flip through those and it would be like Sci-Fi Channel, USA, Nickelodeon, and then right after that would roll around to the early ones, which would be like HBO, Cinemax, and I think Showtime was the other one. And HBO loved Clockwork Orange back in the day. So every once in a while, I would just turn on, I'd see those four dudes walking in a line, or someone getting beat to death with a giant dong statue, or a guy with his eyes pried open. I'd be like, nope, not going to watch that because it's
Uh-huh.
terrifying. Like it's
Yeah.
psychologically terrifying. And
Yeah.
so that's as much Kubrick exposure as I had prior to watching this film.
Okay.
And I think that would probably have been a much rougher entry into the world of Kubrick than this. So this is still a pretty rough entry because
Yeah, it is.
it's shocking. The imagery in this film is nightmarish. The beautiful wide angle Kubrick shots and the long tracking shots of the hallway are mesmerizing, and they cast a spell on you. And if you are watching this at home alone in the dark for the first time, and you have no idea what you're getting into aside from man goes crazy with axe, then you're not prepared for what this movie can do and what it does. So I was really impressed with it. I thought it was beautiful in a way I didn't have the vocabulary to describe at that point in my life. Nowadays, obviously, I'm a florid asshole, but back then I was just like, you've got to see this movie was what I would say to people. If they hadn't seen it, I was like, you've got to see it. So I was really impressed with it, and I was really frightened by it. I really loved the elevator full of blood. I thought that was the coolest visual. I think that's and then that's gotten parodied a lot, you know. It's so iconic that it's just like a part of the fabric of our culture now. But I couldn't imagine being in the audience the first time that played and seeing the blood just gush out of there like a dark lake. Oh my Lord. What an experience that way. But it would have been like being in the theater the first time the alien burst out of somebody's chest, you know?
Yeah. That was the trailer too. The trailer for this movie in the theater, I remember, was just the elevator doors and blood coming out and the music playing. And that was it. There was nothing else. That was just the trailer.
Oh my God. You could not see that.
Yeah.
Oh wow. What a fantastic. But yeah, so I honestly and the weird thing about this movie is if you talk about only what literally happens in the plot, like we just did, there's no reason that you're like, okay, whatever, that sounds lame. But then it's everything that happens between that. The Jack Torrance's slow descent into complete nervous breakdown, his internal war, the Shelley Duvall, I think, is the mom in this one, right? That's her. Her performance is this vulnerable, terrified woman. Everything about this movie, the performances, the cinematography, the mind-blowingly brilliant direction from a true auteur of cinema, it's an absolute masterpiece. It's a work of magic, this movie, and I've loved it for a long time. My girlfriend wasn't a huge fan. She just read the book, she did the audio book, and had absorbed the Stephen King version of it first. And I remember hearing somewhere
King's
that
not a fan either.
Yeah,
so.
King apparently hated this film. He did a made-for-TV.
I can see why too.
Well, yeah.
And also, it wasn't well received when it came out. She got a Razzie Award. Or no, she didn't get she got nominated, and I think so did he.
Wow, that's mean-spirited.
It's the Razzies. I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't really take the Razzies as a mark against the movie, to be honest, because it was really. I remember being well liked at the time.
I did. I mean, I think most. So I disagree with the Razzie Award for her because I thought she did a great job.
Yeah,
but I think I think the reviews were kind of lukewarm. I think what the difference was on the ground level. I think there was a lot.
Oh, it's just not the critical reviews. Yeah. Critics were terrible back then, as they are now.
Critics have always been garbage.
But, I mean, some Razzies are deserved, like Leonard Part 6. Yeah, that warranted a Razzie. But Shelley Duvall,
the Razzies are a PR company that studios pay to give second lives to movies that didn't do as well in the box office. So the people watch because the Razzies. Yeah, studios pay the Razzies to get a Razzie. So they can get.
But I thought.
I'm going to go rent that. It won a Razzie. It's going to be hilariously bad.
I can understand why people would think the performance is bad, but I think that's misunderstanding what she's doing and what he's doing with the scenes. So
their performances are amazing.
Because there's a disconnect. We'll get to Adams in a second, but there's a disconnect between her and Jack Nicholson where it's she's starting a conversation with she says something and he doesn't respond enough, so she tries to start the conversation again, and it looks like a one-sided conversation. And I feel like that is the sort of thing that, and also just the way she's not like a Sigourney Weaver type character. She's more fragile and vulnerable.
She's
so I think at that time it was just maybe not as
I couldn't imagine looking at this. I mean, and maybe this is because I've had a lot of abusive relationships I've had to suffer in the past, but that's what they look like. They look like one person putting in way too much, and another person putting in almost nothing.
Right from the beginning of the movie, when she's smoking the cigarette, talking, not the beginning, but when she's talking to the doctor and saying that backstory, it's like, oh man, this woman looks horribly abused. Like that's just the
she's acting
the vibe that she's putting out.
All the clothes she wears are really concealing, so you can't see her arms or her neck. I mean, like, it's all there. You know, and like maybe these wonderful film critics grew up in nice households so they didn't have to deal with that crap. But someone who has, that's what an abused person looks like. She absolutely sticks the landing on this performance in a way that's almost like a reopening of trauma whenever I watch it. I'm like, oh God, I know women like this.
Yeah, it's an amazing.
It's heartbreaking. It's brilliant. Yeah, Jesus Christ, I couldn't imagine giving her a Razzie for that.
So, Adam, what was your reaction to the movie?
I'll say on that. Yeah, this was actually really interesting to me because I haven't seen this movie in about 20 years. And 20 years ago when I watched it, I had an old cathode ray television.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And I'm just saying, just the old pre-HD TV. And it occurred to me, I have never seen this movie on anything other than a cathode ray television before, just an old square television. And I'm like, wow, it's when the movie started and like the credits with the mountains and everything on this big TV with surround sound. And I'm like, I'm watching this for the first time.
Yep.
I'm like, that's right. This really is a Kubrick movie, isn't it? I actually watched 2001 2 days ago, so I'm having a nice Kubrick week.
I need to go back. I'm going to force my girlfriend to watch 2001.
Yeah, I'm noticing that this podcast in general, that because I watched a lot of the movies on television on VHS that wasn't widescreen, when I see it for the episodes, it's like, wow, I didn't realize this was a really well-crafted movie, because I saw it like all chopped up on a fuzzy TV screen growing up. So I know what you're talking about.
So that was an experience, but my experience with this movie in the past, the thing I always think of is when the ads for this were running on TV and I was pretty young. I can remember my twisted childhood imagination when you'd see like a clip of Jack chasing Danny through the maze with an axe in the ad as a kid. My brain turned the snowy bushes into like these walls made out of human bones. That's what I thought it was. That was my impression of the movie. I'm like, oh my gosh, that terrifying maze of bones, and it's like, oh, it's snow. Oh, okay. But I love this movie. I can't really top much of what's already been said, but I'm someone that actually really likes the movie and really likes the book. I know some people they're different, and I mean, and as I said, I totally get why Stephen King hates the movie, because they did kind of remove the character of Jack from the movie, and you kind of got this different thing going on with that character in the
which since it's movie, based on Stephen King, it'd probably make him upset, right? Like it's
it really. Yeah, I mean, the stuff that they did take out is fantastic. It's like, so I get him being upset about it. It's like, because the book is a character piece. It's this guy disintegrating from the pressure of trying to be a writer, make a living as a writer while supporting his family and his life falling apart, and all this supernatural stuff on top. But and obviously all of that is kind of washed out of this movie, but it's just brilliant in other ways that it doesn't even really matter to me that they took that out. But
yeah, my feeling on this movie. So I like this movie. I think it's number one. It's very well crafted. There's no denying how well made it is. That opening sequence that makes me. I'm terrified of driving on roads like that. So that scene was making me uneasy the whole time. It does a lot of stuff that like The Thing does, where it's this wintry place and you feel like you're in winter. You feel the cold air. It just is it's a Kubrick. Huh?
This film and The Thing both hit way different now that live in Alaska.
I can imagine. Because my reference point is the Northeast. So.
Yeah, but while you're talking about the opening scene too, I have to say, having driven through the mountains out west last week, the fact her reaction where she's just kind of like in the car, just like, I'm like, oh yeah, altitude sickness. I remember that feeling driving around. So I really I felt that was like those nice touches they got right.
There are mountain roads like that in Vermont, which I've had to drive up, and it's very, very unnerving. But so I mean, so I like the movie fine, like it's a good movie, but it's not my favorite Kubrick movie, and it's not my favorite horror movie. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, so I wouldn't say either of those.
So like, and this time around, it's like really interesting because I was kind of like really chewing on a lot of the fan theories and different ideas about it. And and in that respect, I think it's a fascinating movie because it's so ambiguous. It's like deeply, deeply ambiguous. And you could probably watch this 30 times and kind of come away with different ideas about what happened and what the meaning of it all is. And so I think it's a properly kind of like layered movie with lots of different meaning, but also it's one of these movies that can carry multiple different meanings, but they all still kind of work together. So I think that's something very interesting about the movie, and I think the performances are very interesting too. I think especially Shelley Duvall and Jack Nicholson. I think those, they're together. It's just a I don't know, like by the end, that scene where he's coming through the door in the bathroom, and she is like, it's just abject terror. Like I don't think I've ever seen anybody on screen like give themselves in that much to just being like afraid at an animal level for your life. Like that's really impactful. And also his performance, because I think, what was the movie that he was in before this? Was it One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest? Like, what was the more recent film? I don't know. I'm trying to think.
It was before that. I mean, that was definitely before.
But was this his first really hammy performance, or was he? No, hammy performance.
No,
like at this level.
Oh boy. Let's move on, and I'll look it up while
just because the craziness stuff. Like, number one, I realized like that's been imitated by so many people that now when you see it, it's hard not to think like, and some of the stuff that's imitated it has been comedies. So
this is an inch away from a comedy, but that's one of the things that makes it so unnerving to watch.
But what I'm saying is, now when you go back and watch it, you carry in what you saw in the.
I mean, you're not wrong. It's hard to disentangle them. I really appreciated the performance watching it in this most recent time. Like, he really seems unhinged.
Yeah, I'm not knocking the performance. I'm just wondering if this is like his first like crossing the line from like playing different characters to always playing Jack Nicholson. Do you know what I mean? Like that's do you know what I'm talking about? Like,
no, I get what you're saying now. Exactly. Jack Nicholson has that thing like the like Nicolas Cage has, where sometimes he can just do the Nicolas Cage thing instead of playing the part. It's
to be fair, I love the Nicolas Cage thing too. Though I love the Jack Nicholson thing.
I like both of them. I'm just saying they just have that ability. It's like, which could be a good thing. If they end up in a bad movie, they can, if Jack Nicholson just breaks out the Jack Nicholson or Nicolas Cage just as Nicolas Cage, it elevates a crappy movie.
People sometimes want to see the Jack Nicholson. That's what they're there for. Like, I remember back in the 90s, especially, that was a big thing. People really wanted to see, the Jack Nicholson performance.
But One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest was 5 years before this, so he was already known for.
But that was a more subdued kind of insanity.
Yeah, it probably was a little bit.
This one was like the
this
scenes
is what he really went over.
The scenes where like he's in the bar, right? His personality totally changes. Do you know what I mean? When he's talking to the bartender, his mannerisms he's like a different guy, and it's very striking. And just again, like the facial expressions and everything, it's all very animated and lively. So
and the heart of this movie is in the scene where he wakes up from that nightmare where he's attacking his family, and he's like sobbing, broken, and then immediately becomes defensive and edgy. And then Danny walks in, and the wife blames him for beating him up. Like, that's kind of like, that's the moment when that's like the real only moment I can think of in this movie where you really kind of look into this guy and you see what struggle he's having, where it's like it's a real battle between his best and worst natures. Because he's a sympathetic character, but we don't see much of that to give us sympathy for him. We're kind of just scared of him for most of this movie.
That's the big difference between this and the book. I mean, the book being a book, you spend a good chunk of it in his head. He's much more sympathetic, and it's a much more gradual disintegration in the book. Whereas in this, you are actually a lot closer to the other two characters than you ever are to him. He's never really a viewpoint character in the movie, which is an interesting approach, and it works.
It's a little odd. Go ahead, Joel.
Never.
Okay, all right. Well, I just gonna say it's kind of odd because, like, I agree with you, and I think that on the one hand, he's not sympathetic. He's very difficult to like, even because he's aggressive towards them from the very beginning. But at the same time, I feel like there is that thing going on in the movie where the kid is kind of annoying, and she's also a little bit annoying, and I feel like they kind of want you to feel the agitation he's feeling, but they never want you to be in his head either. Do you know what I mean? And so I think it does have a weird effect. I think in the end, I find myself sort of more following the Shelley Duvall character. That's the character that I find myself rooting for by the end of the movie.
Well, I root for her, but I'm never in her head. I never feel like I'm a viewpoint character with anyone in this movie. I always feel like I'm kind of arm's length with everyone.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It does all feel like you're watching this from a distance to an extent.
And most movies don't have the boldness to do that. I think a lot of movies, and then maybe it's just because there's a lot more, and I've been noticing this a lot when I watch movies. Now, whenever you watch a Kubrick movie, you can't help but watch other movies with a much more critical eye, because we immediately bookended this one with, there's a new Marvel, like a horror Marvel movie thing. It's like an hour-long thing with Man-Thing in it on Disney Plus, and that's what we watch after this. And it's actually really fun. They do like a Universal monster movie kind of thing with it. It's in black and white for most of it. It's pretty cool and fun. But I was noticing that they keep doing these things like little reverse shot, where it's like, oh, here's camera A on the character A, here's camera B on character B. And every time it would do that, it would completely take me out of the movie. It'd be like, oh, this.
Yeah, Kubrick's good for like really lingering on it. Like, I feel like he chooses the framing of the scenes very carefully. And so you kind of want that, like, and again, like I said, this isn't my favorite Kubrick movie, but all of the Kubrick movies have that quality where you kind of like it is like looking at a painting. And so
But on your point earlier about what exactly were you saying? Basically, just how you can come up with many theories because nothing is really nailed down in the movie. That's something I think it does share with the book, because the book, there's a lot more detail in the book. Like I know who the guy in the dog suit is. I know who the woman in the bathtub is. I know all the stories behind them, but you still don't
knowing.
Yeah, knowing.
No, let me finish. The point is that doesn't explain anything. It only increases the horror because you're not actually getting, this explanation. Oh, well, there's this thing this spooky thing, and if you do this on the third night, it'll kill it, or what. There's nothing like that. It's just it's just all these. You basically just get more occurrences of these characters being consumed by the horror of the hotel, whatever it might be.
What I liked about the way the movie handled it is it was vague enough that I could project a lot of different things onto it. I don't know if that, how that pairs with the book, but I guess it would be a good time to ask the question, what do you think was going on in this movie for real? Like, what's the most likely situation that we're watching unfold?
I'll throw out a theory I came up with this time watching it. Just, basically, you do have the thing with, you've always been the caretaker here. Yeah. And the big difference between, people always bring up between the book and the movie, is that the Jack Torrance in this is always kind of crazy and kind of a jerk and not all that likable. There isn't as much of a disintegration as much as he just takes this final push over the edge. And it does just feel like a homecoming. It's like, I feel like he almost is this monster he's this monster who's been repressing his monstrous urges all his life, and he's finally found the place where he gets to be a monster. And it's almost kind of a Nightbreed situation. It's but that's the crazy theory that popped into my head tonight watching it. I'm like,
I think that's a reasonable one.
That seems okay.
Joel, what's your? That didn't sound like a ringing endorsement, but
I think the hotel's a psychic vampire, and it devours people, and he got eaten. and it doesn't care about time or place. So it's like, yeah, I ate you all the way back into the past and made you part of the pre-existing fabric of this hotel because I'm a ghost hotel. Fuck you.
Yep.
Yeah. I think that I think it's one of these. So number one, I think the movie is one of these things where multiple things are supposed to be true. So I think there's like a secular thing that's going on that's supposed to be true, which is that this is all kind of going on in this guy's head because he's crazy, and it's like about the duality.
I don't think that works though.
Well, let me finish. Let me finish.
Okay.
Never.
So I think that's one reading that you can have of the movie that is valid, and I think that the other half of it is the supernatural aspect, which is that it's like that's like sort of like you could call it like the psychological hell. You know what I mean of the movie. I think what I like to think of it as is kind of similar to Joel's idea, which is that it's kind of like the Hotel California type situation where, you see him at the ball. And I know that there's an explanation that Kubrick gave for this, but my preferred explanation is the reason that we see him at the ballroom at the end is the hotel is kind of like perpetually throwing this ball for all of the people that it has sucked into it as ghosts. You know what I mean? And just gathering souls. And so it's just trying to gather souls for the gala, basically, because it's they're just going to constantly relive all of the evil that they're performing. And so that's sort of the way I like to think of it. But I do feel like there is like a psychological thing going on also with the movie. So that's why I think you kind of have to split it in a weird way.
Yeah, but the supernatural things, I mean, you've got like Halloran getting a psychic message in Florida to come there. You've got, Danny knowing what the phone's about to ring and what the message is. And there's just, you
have all that, but you could dismiss there's one scene that like, I can't figure out an explanation for, but like the phone ringing, like, well, he knows his dad is going for a job, right? Like it's not.
Once you're going down there and you're watching a horror movie, and you're trying that hard to say that it's not supernatural. I feel at that point you're just not engaging with the movie.
I don't think so. I think in this case, I feel because I feel like enough of this feels like it could all be in their heads that I wouldn't. You know what I mean? Like, again, the scene in the bathroom with the ghost, that can all be going on in Jack's head. There's no reason why it doesn't happen.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the movie as a whole. When you look at all the things in the movie, I mean, you can point to a scene and go, well, this could have been imagined. But
I don't know. I think there's a really strong argument to be made that it could all be going on in his head or in her head or a combination of people's heads. I prefer the supernatural angle, but I just feel like there's enough of that there that that the supernatural is sort of representing something else.
I feel it makes the mood. I don't know. I mean, how does it make anything more interesting? I guess it just feels like.
Because then I think you're getting more into psychology of mankind and like because then you can start reading things like the maze is like his subconscious maybe or something. You know what I mean? There's like this like I don't know. I can tell you're not interested, but I think that it's. I don't know.
It would have been more valid. Here's the thing: the movie isn't called anything aside from The Shining, and the central conceit is that you shine. So that has to at least be real. There is at least that element which is inarguably supernatural. You can't say The Shining is just some psychological thing. No, there's something going on with this kid in Halloran. They have some kind of magic. Now, whether or not the hotel is evil magic or it's just a representative of their psychological state, maybe that's up for debate. Maybe The Shining is just something a little more psychic and a little less magical, so it's just like something that's human psychology just pushed to this next level, and maybe being alone in the same room with a kid that is kind of nonverbal but communicates through this sort of shining was a little bit too much for the psychologically unstable Jack Torrance. And what we're seeing is just his crazy coming out. Maybe there's much more psychology.
You could even dismiss some of the Shining stuff a little bit.
Some of it,
especially if it's unreliable narrator stuff going on. Do you know what I mean?
Who's the narrator in this movie, though? You'd have to ask yourself.
There's no narrator.
There is no narrator.
Like it's Jack Torrance having delusions about Danny communicating with Jack Halloran, and I don't know.
They could all three of them could be narrators, right? So
here's the thing. I'm if this is coming from Jack's imaginings and everything that isn't just on Jack is him imagining what's happening, I can give you that. Because that removes all the psychological, everything magical about it, and it's just him going crazy at that point. If we go with the conceit that he's the point of view character and when we're not seeing him, we're seeing what's going on in his head, that he's an unreliable narrator and it is psychological. I could give you that one.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. I made it work. You're welcome, everyone. So what are these?
But I do prefer the supernatural one personally. I just think that it's one of these movies that doesn't. I don't think you can really ever settle on. Oh, this is the proper.
I don't know. I strongly do, but it just feels like.
Well, I can tell you what I heard Kubrick had said about it was that it's supposed to. It's kind of about reincarnation is a concept in it, and the reason we see him and people have like kind of expanded off minor comments he's made, but what it sounds it's the.
There you go. That's why the director that it's.
But he also undermines that by talking about like the duality in psychology and.
But I don't think because a movie has you're talking about psychology if it's the opposite of supernatural elements. You can have all kinds of psychology in there.
No, what I mean is I think that he was talking about it in ways that make it sound like it might not be in his head or it might be. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, one interesting thing is I know that there's a story that he called Stephen King at like 3 a.m. regularly and asked him weird questions like, "Do you believe in God?" And so maybe part of it is that, and I don't think Kubrick had the beliefs that King maybe had or vice versa, and so maybe part of it is has to do with that. But because I know like there's a conversation they supposedly had where he said to King that like ghost stories are fundamentally optimistic because it means that you go somewhere after you die. And King was like, well, yeah, but some people believe in hell and are more afraid of going to hell than so. So what I'm saying is you could sort of interpret this as a psychological hell that Jack is existing in because it's just
Well, the other thing Kubrick is missing is that ghosts aren't necessarily sapient or aware. They can just be psychic things.
Yeah, like Halloran says in the movie.
Yeah, exactly, like pictures. So
anyway, so here's the theory number one. It's all about the Native American genocide.
Yeah, that's another one. No.
There's no Native Americans in this movie. Were there? I didn't see any.
No. There's mention of Native American art. They mentioned the background. Now, here's an interesting thing. They mentioned that they were fending off Indian attacks when it was being built in 1909. But 1909 seems kind of late to be fending off.
Because it's made by
but actually, with the number 42 appearing in the movie a bunch of times. Which is the year of the final solution, and so that's why. And if you combine that with the Indian imagery, that's sort of the idea. Now, apparently Kubrick,
or it's out west and there's lots of Indian imagery, and it's still the 1980s, so that there's just a lot more Native American imagery around.
Now, the one thing that does give this theory credence is there was a reviewer who mentioned that idea, and Kubrick apparently talked to him, and this is all according to this guy though, so it's you know what I mean, so keep in mind the source, but according to him, Kubrick was like, oh, you're like one of the only people to notice that about the movie, that and he was complimenting him, so again, keep in mind the source. The only thing I could find in the movie that could add to that theory is what's the room 237, and this is like not a good argument, but it's the only detail.
It's also from the book too, so it's not something Kubrick added. It's from the book. So.
Oh, okay. So then I guess so maybe people were pulling it in from the book as well. But the room 237, if you add 2 to 37 comes to 39, which is the year World War II started. And so, if you pair that
with just numerology here. There's no way.
No, well, I mean, it's at least grounded in the idea.
If Kubrick was spending his time doing things like that, I've lost all my respect for him. His good movies aside, he's a hack.
Well, you're gonna love the next one then, Adam, because the next theory is the Apollo moon landing fake.
Yeah.
Kubrick was supposedly involved in. So that's
to be fair, that Apollo 11 jacket that Danny's wearing is I mean, like
that's why. Yeah.
But I mean, like,
I was a kid in the 70s. We all had moon landing stuff.
Yeah, I
it's just
it's a huge event.
Native American products were much more prominent in the 70s because you hadn't had the whole cultural appropriation. We must remove this imagery from our society thing yet. So it was.
I don't like that the cultural appropriation argument is used to purge ourselves of other cultures. Like,
yeah,
it's like the opposite of what you'd want it to be.
I moved to America in '79, and that kind of imagery was just commonplace. So these are people who were born in 1990 looking at this movie and going, why are there space rockets and Native Americans all over the place? What's going on?
It's because not everything is made for you. You have a good baby.
And just in case people listening don't know, the reason that theory exists is because there are people that say he helped fake the moon landing and that 2001 was sort of part of the research for developing that. I think it's a really weak theory. I don't buy it at all because I think that we landed on the moon.
So thoroughly debunked that it's unbelievable.
But it comes up every time you look up. I went down the rabbit hole on YouTube, and that one comes up consistently. And there's even a documentary called Room 237. And that gets plenty of play in that documentary. So it's at least worth discussing. The next one is that it's hell, which I think is not very controversial. Yeah, I think that's a reasonable argument.
Like they all died on the drive up there and they're just in hell now.
No, I mean, you have to sort of stretch reality. It's not like you can't do like a literal, the boy and the girl are necessarily in hell. Blah,
we
blah,
just
blah.
did the fake Apollo landing and you're going to tell me I can't say they all died in a car wreck? Come on.
No. What I'm saying is,
I think I can.
I mean, you could say that if you want to, but I don't think that theory is arguing that they died in a car wreck on their way there.
Okay.
I think the
theory they were dead the whole time. It's always the best ending to any movie ever.
The argument is that either Jack is in hell or that the hotel is somehow an entry point to hell of some kind.
Well, what's the distinction between hell and what it seems to literally be, which is some kind of weird psychic nexus of horror? I mean, like, at that point, you're just splitting hairs.
Well,
I think having stated my own theory, the best theory, is Joel's original one, that it's kind of a vampire hotel sucking out souls. That really is
that's the most clearest theory, right?
Obvious. Yeah, exactly. The book.
Well,
totally,
I think the hotel is like a hell place, kind of works too, because it fits notions that we have of hell.
That's the second best theory. Yeah. So.
And also the guy, I forget the guy who's the head of the hotel, just something about that guy. We don't have actors like that. That's something I wanted to talk about. Wrinkles have vanished from Hollywood. We do not have actors with these wrinkly faces.
And look like normal people you see on the street.
It's just, well, not just that, but you don't even see people like that really anymore. Like, I think people don't age in the same way or something like that. Like that, I would.
That guy was 25, so yeah.
He's kind of got like he had like a game show host vibe going on. There's just something about him.
So leathery and awful about him. I love that actor.
Yeah, the smile and the leathery skin and the hair and everything. That's just the way he told the stories. Yeah, that's definitely a smoker's face. But I could see him kind of being like a devilish type figure in the movie, and I don't know. So I like the
most of these theories are incredibly weak when you examine them with like just any amount of critical scrutiny at all. I really feel like a lot of the
hell
theories,
I think is solid. I think
is it though?
Yeah.
Which one? Like, in which way is it meaningfully hell?
Well, the question is, let's examine it. If it is hell, what happened with so did Danny and Wendy escape from hell?
That's why I'm saying you're not. I don't think you need to literally include them.
Okay.
As I think it's more about Jack's experience of being tormented.
But they're people. Why would they be there though? Why is the horror so focused on them?
I think what it is it's almost like a. It's like he's repeating the act that damned his soul.
Well, I don't considering she's the best performance and the most actual character in the movie. I just feel like if you make her into a figment just designed to torture him,
she's not a figment. He's reliving something that really happened.
So what we're seeing is not the thing that happened, but the thing that is the thing that happened.
We're seeing his experience in hell.
you examine these with any amount of critical
I think it's
scrutiny,
fine. I don't have a problem.
fall
But
apart.
I will give you a more literal answer. There's a moment in the movie where he says, I would give my soul for a beer. And then the
thank you.
You know, what's his name? Who is the bartender?
Then Lou Cipher shows up with an egg.
It was a name kind of like that, but I can't remember exactly what the name was.
It was Lloyd, wasn't it?
Lloyd, thank you. Yeah, it was an L name, Lloyd. But he shows up with the bourbon and he drinks, and then and again, I would read it more figuratively though, where it's like his personal hell seems to be his alcoholism, and but
his temper.
Yeah, but those seem related, like the alcohol and the temper.
Oh yeah, yeah. Drinking is not a great way to control your temper.
But I think hell makes sense as an idea in that one. The next one is that these are all CIA-induced hallucinations, which I don't agree with this one, but I think it's a really fascinating theory.
I haven't heard this one. Please.
I'm willing to hear this one.
Okay,
this is the first one that's at least fun.
So there's a poster, which for one of the other theories is also important, but the poster of the skier in the background that says Monarch on it, that's like some kind of CIA project. There was like the Monarch I might be getting the name wrong, but whatever name is on that poster, it was some kind of CIA
I promise you that was a cigarette brand or something.
I don't know. That I'm just telling you what the theory is. And so then but the idea is that they've been lured to this hotel in order for the CIA to conduct, Jacob's Ladder like experiments on them, which I think is that theory would hold up because you could watch the movie and if you ask yourself at any moment, are they hallucinating? You could say, yeah, sure. So it holds up.
Wait, what's the connection to the hotel though? Because all this stuff starts with Danny before they even get to the hotel.
Right. What about The Shining?
I think I don't know. Maybe they put something in their water before they before they brought them.
You have to insert things into the movie that are huge leaps that have no context or foreshadowing from the movie itself to make any of these theories work.
Well, again, I don't think that's the case. I think with the Hell one, that's not the case. I think with this one, the Apollo moon landing one, and the genocide one, I'd be willing to entertain more, but just as a theme. But
thematically, I suppose. But
it's just some crazy number math of mixing up number scrambles and
right. I don't know. There's no rigor to these. It's just disseminated numerology.
Well, it's not, but it's not numerology if you're like referencing a date that was significant. Well,
if they referenced it, yeah. But the letter, the numbers 4 and 2 coincidentally happening in a movie where every single room has a number on it that's not significant.
Well, I can't remember where does 42 appear in the movie. I'm trying to remember where.
Lord knows, I don't remember it happening.
What's the significance of 42 anyway? I mean,
that's the year of the final solution. That's when.
No, it isn't. 19.
It's not though. 42 is pretty far into World War II. The war was over in 45.
No, right. That's when they started implementing that's supposedly.
Oh yeah. Huh.
Okay,
I could be wrong.
But again, like. No one mentions the Holocaust or racial genocide. The only thing that's talked about is that it was a sacred site to Native Americans or a cursed site or something, and they had to.
Yeah, that's where I think the theory gets weak. But I don't think it's like But I still think
that's the only place that it connects to the movie at all. It's not where it gets weak. It's the only place it connects at all.
No, because then you also have a movie that's incredibly violent about a man killing his family, and so it's bound up in these themes of violence and bloodshed, and so I think it could work.
But it doesn't.
I don't see how it ties into anything.
Well, I'm not doing a good job of I don't have all the bullet points of the argument.
I've read this theory. I read this theory in detail. I remember when that movie Room 237 came out and stuff. But this one, it's like, okay, you found some things on the wall and you made up your own movie about a couple of items on the wall, and that's it.
The movie is so clearly about what it's about too. Like,
I know that's what makes me angry. It's just like it's a good movie and people just want to. I mean, it's fine for like a Denny's at 2 a.m. and you're speculating, but pretending. It's like that would be a fun theory if someone came up with it and we were joking around, but just I don't know. It just bugs me, the idea that people are like, that's the real meaning. I found it's about racism. Everything's about racism. Yay.
Well, I see. I don't know. I'm bothered if people tell me that's like the one solution to the movie. But if it's one theory among many, I'm fine with. I don't think it's a crazy idea.
I just tell me the theory at all.
That's the one I'm interested in. You mentioned that before the podcast. I don't know what the Wendy theory is.
Well, hold on. We got to work through all the other theories before we get to Wendy.
Okay.
Oh, God, why do we have to take all of our medicine before we get to the candy? Just give me the candy.
Hold on. So so we've gone through all the first four. So then the next one, and this one I think is really misreading, drawing on mythic imagery and then putting that imagery as the center of the movie, which is not how it should be done. But the idea is that it's about Theseus and the Minotaur, which that makes total sense in that there's a maze and he's definitely acting like a Minotaur at the end of that movie. But I think he's just
Danny's mother helps him get out of the maze by walking through with him before. Okay. You know what? There you go. I'll give you that. That's a good reference.
And also, just to bring that poster back in, that Monarch poster, the skier, his legs look like a bull's legs. You can sort of see. No, I think that's valid. You can definitely, if you look at that poster, it foreshadows like a bull-like figure.
I'm pretty certain that you would just put a bull in. Like, I don't know. There's so much Native American imagery in here. You could put a woven tapestry of a bull somewhere.
I would agree with you if there was no other Minotaur stuff going on, but when you have the Minotaur stuff at the end, and there's a crucial scene in the game room with that poster, and it looks kind of bull-like in the background, I think that
it's a skier.
It's a skier, but the angle and everything, it has a real bull-like posture. And there's also another picture in the hallway where you can kind of see almost like horns. It looks like. But either way, whether that poster is meaningful or not, I think that the Minotaur thing, it definitely holds up. It's just I don't think it's the central point of the movie. I think it's a
reference.
I think it's a reference.
Yeah, I think that
that's clever.
Definitely,
a classically liberally educated person would probably think of that reference and would understand.
Which when you start getting into the Wendy theory and stuff, you could apply it in an odd way, but.
You're teasing me with this Wendy theory. How many more?
I know.
A lot of people are angry about the Wendy theory, and I don't know.
I want to be angry about it, but
I don't know the argument of the Wendy theory. I just know the central point of it. So
I'll take the.
But before we get to that, there's the other theory, which I think is. Hold on. So there's the abuse.
How many more of these? I'll tolerate exactly one more. You got one more.
You're gonna get two more because you're not gonna get the Wendy theory if you don't get through this one. So the other one is the abuse theory.
I'm taking out the
earbuds. You're just interrupting me and making it longer before we get to the Wendy theory.
I am convincing for the entertainment of our audience, sir.
So no, there's the abuse theory, and the abuse theory has two basic.
The abuse theory is that you just keep withholding the Wendy theory until
that's not a theory. That's just the abuse reality. You're a monster. Continue.
No, so the idea is that Jack has been abusing Danny. Which I mean,
that's
that holds
up.
Yeah, that holds up.
That happened in the movie.
But so this has two layers. Number one, but number two, it's more. It's not an accidental, pulling of the shoulder. He's been legitimately abusing him, and that also holds up because the account where she says that he pulled his shoulder is contradicted a number of times in the movie. The first time we hear about it, she says it happened 5 months ago. But then when he mentions it in the bar, he says it happened 3 years ago. And she says that it was over school papers, and then he says it was over like a novel he was writing. So it's just totally different. So it must have happened multiple times, is what would be my take.
Well, just to add something from the book in here too to support that theory too. The reason why he's taking this job at the hotel, it isn't a teacher anymore, is because he hit a kid.
Okay. So, and also
so
he's
that's how his life got so screwed up.
It also makes sense too because he's mean to them, like in the car, like he's really not friendly to. There's only one scene where he's even vaguely pleasant to her, I think. So
I think it's just the one thing this movie does well is just the lack of connection between Jack and Danny. There's just this total cold that scene where he calls him into the room and it's just like it's so uncomfortable.
Well, the other sort of, it's like an additional theory that sort of rides on this one, is that it's a sexual abuse thing and that he's actually sexually abusing Danny. And there's good, I think there's good arguments for that, but I don't think that you necessarily, I think the important thing is there's abuse.
Yeah, it could be sexual, it might not be. Either way, I could see either direction on that.
Okay, here's where I will actually entertain one of these goddamn theories. They both go into the abuse room. Only him and Danny go into that room. And they both have what is possibly a violent and possibly a sexual experience. There you go. I'll give you that one. There's enough vagary in that you might interpret that.
And people have gone over. There's like people going over this with a fine-tooth comb.
Sure.
Because
they don't have lives.
So then the Wendy or they're film critics or something. I don't know. But
like I said, they don't have lives.
Like the guy that made the documentary at least has a reason to be spending hours going.
At least that man found a way to profit off the fact he has no life.
So the Wendy theory basically reverses that and says, no, Wendy's the crazy one, and that these are all her hallucinations that she's having. So the Shining thing is her paranoia that guy and Danny are having these secret communications. And there's an elaborate argument that the person who put this forth makes.
There's also a good one. Let's give me all. So
there's also a very now here's where it's interesting, because when I saw it this time, I watched it before I went and watched all these theories. And one of the lines that really struck out at me is when Wendy says, "There's a crazy woman in room 2," or not. She doesn't say the room number. She says and she tried to kill Danny. She tried to strangle Danny. And then as she was saying that, I was like, "Wait, is she talking about herself? Like just something about that scene?"
That's kind of like Munchausen by proxy, with her kind of boosting the psychic thing on the kid. Yeah,
I don't know. I just thought that scene, and then. But then when you see the woman that Jack sees in that room, she's really tall, and Shelley Duvall is really, really tall. And so there's enough there that you could say, to Joel's point about only Jack and Danny go in that room, maybe there's a possibility that Wendy's been in that room too. And so, and I think if you tie it to the Minotaur thing, you could say maybe this is like in a weird way, like an Oedipus type play where Jack is trying to kill them because there's like a sexual relationship between Wendy and Danny or something. But that, again, a lot of
I'm actually completely fine with that. I understand why someone might see that. And that's the only one where I'm like, nah, okay, that's cool.
I just felt I had to fight so hard for the hell theory, but you just the Wendy theory is
the hell theory was stupid. This one's clever.
The thing with the Wendy theory, I don't buy it quite, but it does fit with the psychology of the characters, which is the problem with all these other ones. It's like the genocide one, I'm like, it has nothing to do with the story. Whereas with this, it's like, okay, it is, because I mean, you basically, Jack is trying to sell us on the idea that, oh, you're acting crazy about your kid, and he's the one causing the trouble, and you're causing the trouble. And it's basically, this theory is saying Jack's right. Jack is being gaslit by Wendy, and it's the other way around, which I don't buy it, but it is an interesting.
Well, I think that one line by her saying there's a crazy woman in the room, that's the one thing that makes me say that there's maybe
such a wonderful line too. Yeah. Like outside of this theory, just looking at that line, oh, what a haunting, unsettling notion that there's just some unknown person that's injuring people, like injuring the most vulnerable part of your little party. So spooky.
When I judge theories like this, obviously there's is it credible? Does it actually work? But there's also just, does it in any way improve the story or anything? Like I said, the Wendy one, like if this were true, I'm like, oh, that's an interesting twist, as opposed to these other ones where it's like, ooh, there's those numbers on the wall, and it doesn't change anything.
The thing about the genocide thing is, I don't think that's not really. It's not saying that it's like adding anything new to the story. It's more like it's just a layer of the theme of like this past.
The Minotaur one you said?
No, the other ones, the genocide one. It's like it's sort of like. It's like you have this like history of violence that Jack has that's kind of coming to the surface. It's like
the history of violence of people being violence in history.
But you know what I mean.
It's just nothing there. It's just like, people were violent in the past and people are violent now, and
that's the thing. There's the theories that try to write over what the movie is clearly saying, and those I'm just going to discard entirely. Right? Okay. And the hell theory kind of, at least the hell theory is one step further than that, where it's like, well, there's an interpretation of what's happening that maybe, like, we're not doing the literal reading. We're thinking, like, what if we interpreted this in the light of these other ideas? And are those credible or not? And the hell theory has some credibility, so I'm not going to discount it entirely. I just think it's lazy. They were always dead, or they're in hell, or it's a dream. I'm done with that. Like, thank you. We've had enough of those stories. Please just tell stories.
Yeah, but keep in mind, this was made in 1980 before we had.
I don't care. I don't care when it comes from. It's stupid. It was always stupid.
This was before I See Dead People.
It's never going to be.
I mean, we had movies like that.
An Occurrence of Owl Creek Bridge was still cool when Ambrose Bierce did it. Come on.
I mean, I get that, and there was Carnival of Souls and a lot, but I think it's a valid just because the house is so strange and everything that's happening is so unusual that certainly interpret that.
At a minimum with that theory, I want to know personally when you think someone went to hell and who it is that's in hell.
Well, my favorite is that he goes to hell when he sells his soul for the drink, because I think that's hysterical. But I think
that's hysterical.
But I think if it is hell, no, I think more realistically, it's more like he's we're sort of witnessing him that's what his hell is. We're watching this guy's hell play over again, and that's just and again, I think whether it's hell or whether he's
alone is in hell, and like something happened. It might have been literally what happened here, but something happened in that hotel, and he died. And so what we're seeing is Jack reliving that. While he's in hell, and we're really actually seeing. I don't feel like that's probably the case, because the first half of the movie is just them driving to a hotel and being there for a while, and it just doesn't feel supernatural at all. There's The Shining a little bit, but it's such a wonderful.
I don't know, the way that scene on the road is shot is really eerie to me, and we never see him off of the mountains. Like, he's always on the property, basically. Do you know what I mean? He's either in the car on the road up there.
And he's never in their home with them.
He's never. So there's something kind of disconnected about him from the rest of the family and everything. That's I think kind of lends a little bit of weight to that. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, and again, maybe not hell. Maybe we're just seeing haunting play over.
I'll go this far with you. I still think this is a middling theory at best. But let's say that the whole Danny talking to his finger thing is him talking to it like an angel or a devil, and his dad dies on the way back home, right? So he's just dead. And so any part where you see him and the family, that's just him kind of going to hell with these simulacrum versions that exist only in his mind. And so every part of the movie where it's just that is just him in hell. And he's like slowly coming to realize that he's trapped in a nightmare of his own making. Okay, fine. That's not great, but okay, I'll take it. I'll take it from an early 80s, late 70s when this movie came out movie, But I like the Wendy theory. I like the abuse theory. And I like the imagery of the Minotaur stuff. That's not a theory. That's just an recognition that they're referencing the Minotaur. That's not really. That's not a theory. There's not enough to that to make that what the movie's about. But it's a layer. It's an element. It's a thing that's in the movie. Sure.
I think the more official idea of what Kubrick was trying to do was that the reason we see him in that photo when he was in 1921 is that that was him in one incarnation. Now this is another version of him because he's been reincarnated and kind of condemned to repeat the cycle at the hotel. It was, I think that's like the official sort of reading of what's supposed to be going on.
Okay. Fine with
that. But again, I personally like the idea of the hotel sucking souls into the ballroom. That's sort of my.
Yeah, I think that's neat.
Yeah, I like
the hotel is such a wonderful character in this movie,
Yeah.
That's
what's. Because that is the heart even of the book too. Is that hotel in the book is just such an amazing thing, and I think so. Really, what Kubrick is doing is just getting the atmosphere of the book more than anything, and yeah. I'm rambling. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. But yeah, so I don't know. What was it? Was there anything else that I wanted to?
Yeah, honestly, the Woody theory I'm fine with. I don't think, again, I'm with Adam. Yeah. That's clearly not what's happening. But it's a fun new way of thinking about the movie, and
it provokes interesting discussion about the characters at least.
And to be clear, I'm probably not doing service to a lot of these theories very well because I just encountered them and I'm just trying to regurgitate them to you guys. So anybody listening who's a proponent of these theories,
someone's probably
certainly feel free to weigh in and let me know if I failed to.
And I'll tell you you're wrong.
Well, yeah, no, I didn't lay out the argument.
I remember having all these arguments on the internet years ago about these. That's why I'm so angry.
Yeah, I do feel like it touched a nerve when these were brought up.
Plus, it's just makes for better podcasting.
Well, at this point, it's been a good 20 years where we've all been online and we've all had these arguments for constantly. And it's gotten to the point, I think, at least in my online career, where I am done suffering fools. There's a point in almost every conversation where I'm arguing online where I recognize the person I'm talking to is actually an idiot. Like they're not understanding something I'm saying. There's a nuance that is totally lost to them, or there's a level of intellect operation they cannot get to. And I just check out of it. And I
think it's also that people interpret things very differently sometimes. So sometimes people look at things in like a very literal way. Sometimes people look at things in a very non-literal way. And I think that creates a lot of, I don't know. And also I think there's a game that happens on YouTube, especially when people are talking about movies where.
Oh yeah. YouTube's its own world.
Yeah. So, again, and also I think the other issue with these theories, I think I said this before the podcast, not during, but there's like an equal blend of reasonable things and unreasonable things, and and sometimes they exist in the same theory, and that can be very frustrating. Because
there's a way to think about things in like a sequenced logical fashion, and a lot of theories, and I'm using air quotation marks for those who don't have the benefit of seeing me. They don't have that. They just have these wild notions and disconnected ideas that are kind of crammed awkwardly together.
And I'm pretty open-minded. Like if somebody presents me a theory, I'm fine with a movie. Somebody saying, "Hey, this is like my idea what happened." That's fine. Where I start to get annoyed is there's a proliferation of fan theories where people don't recognize that it's a fan theory anymore. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And there's a lot of hyper-literal Wikipedia writers that have ruined.
Yeah, because I do like hearing people's like, "Hey, this is kind of how I." It's like that's what you thought. That's fine. But I think when it's like, well, no, this was about Wendy being the crazy person, and if you disagree, you're wrong. That's when I think it's a real.
You're not clued in.
Yeah, that's when I think it becomes.
Go back to Wikipedia. Go back to your wiki. Dude.
Especially because sometimes people will come up with a theory. They will only have one or two points that they hook onto, but then other people might find other things, and it becomes a little more robust.
You hit those personality types where they're the person who the unconventional view. I know the theory, so I'm smarter than everyone else. And so they collect these theories, and it's just like.
There's a difference in creation between whenever you're a creator who's originating ideas and then like the group creation of a fandom, and neither is necessarily worse, but only one of them sells. And that's because they only really want to buy one of them. You know what I mean? Like, so I don't have a lot of respect for like big, giant, elaborate fan theories. It's like, okay, you all have mediocre ideas that you've attached to a work of genius. Bravo.
Well, for me, the way I see, so let me weigh in on behalf of the fans. I'm not going to do a good job because I already sort of know where my argument is going.
I see.
When I was younger, I don't smoke marijuana anymore, any of that stuff. But when I was younger, I did, and I used to love smoking before watching a movie. And if I smoked before I watched a movie, I was going to have a much different interpretation of that movie than if I watched it without smoking. Do you know what I mean? It's just like you're just thinking differently, right? And so, I think there's like room for like the pot filtered view of a film, if that makes sense. And I'm interested in hearing sort of the like, and not necessarily limited to marijuana, but just like anytime somebody watches a movie in an altered state of consciousness, I think they're going to get something slightly different out of it than if they're they're not on anything, or they're not in, and if they're just in a purely normal state of mind. And so I think that's fine.
I think here's the thing about that. You really view things differently in general as an audience member than you do as a creator of things.
Yeah.
I think when you create things, you have this understanding that you're never quite going to get your vision out there. You have like something in your head that's able to change with your moods and your ideas as they change. And you can't quite get that living thing out but what you get out is still something that is an echo of that original vibrant idea. And the ideas are usually pretty simple and pretty clear, you know? So whenever you have these elaborate fan theories, you're like, this is what it's secretly about the whole time. Unless that is as vibrant and clear and is structured, and it's structured and obvious from the structure of the film or whatever work, it's probably just your own creative urge you should have followed into its own unique thing. You shouldn't have applied that like a thin layer of white paint over the house which was built, which is the original thing.
Well, again,
you know?
I'm fine with it
exactly,
if they recognize it for what it is. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think there's no problem with engaging something in a subjective way. It's just when it's like, when it starts carrying weight to it online where people act differently. Do you know what I mean? Then it's the problem.
All right. So I've got some theorizing of my own here.
Okay.
It occurred to me, if you remember my theory, I came in back when we first starting about theories, I had my, it's his homecoming. He's just this monster who's returned home and found his place. I was like, actually, that fits really well with the reincarnation theory that you said may have come from Kubrick potentially. But then the hole I have in that theory, okay, if it's because he reincarnated and he's come back to this place again and it's where he belongs. If it is a vampire that sucks in souls, how did he get out to be reincarnated, and why is he happy to be back?
Oh, because it's I don't know that there's an explanation, but I think the idea is just that it's not quite like Buddhist reincarnation, but there's like a little bit of something like that going on, and he's just repeating it because because he's damned and this is the cycle that he's trapped in, or if you're taking it maybe a more Buddhist approach, he's still stuck in that whatever he's attached to, whatever he's doing, he's still stuck in that. But I don't know. I don't like the reincarnation.
I just throw it.
So he said reincarnation, so you have to deal with it because Kubrick himself said it. But I feel it's a little messy because I like the neatness of he's in the photograph because he's somehow been drawn in, and that's that 1921 scene that we see, the gala that he was at. That's sort of the perpetual thing that it's trying to gather people to. That I like that idea.
One thing too is I think to an extent that if you're looking for the absolute, true, perfect answer behind everything, my guess is that Kubrick didn't have one because not because he didn't think about it, but just because there is just this metaphysical ambiguity to things that sometimes you just want to leave alone. You don't need to answer the ultimate question. You just need to know the finer points. So I don't know that there necessarily is a right answer here.
And I guess too, like it really depends. Like a lot of it comes down to how he edited it, right? Like I'm sure there's a lot of stuff that was cut out, and so I don't know.
Well, yeah, exactly. Let's think. Yeah, during the process, things change. When you're writing something, sometimes you change your mind about something.
This isn't the original ending. The original ending was in the movie for like 2 weeks when it came out, and then he changed it. So
there's a hospital scene.
Yeah, and that actually radically changes the meaning of the movie, I think. So I feel like you're right that he either didn't have it, like he's maybe kind of like a sculptor. Do you know what I mean? Just sort of like,
I know, because I don't mean it as an insult. Like, I don't think there is an answer. You're just throwing shit at the wall. I don't think that, but it's just when you're dealing with weird stories, because Stephen King feels the same way. Like I said, there's ambiguity in the novel itself because you don't. That's a problem with a lot of modern horror movies is they have to explain everything to the audience, and once you know everything, it takes some of that fear away.
But Joel, do you know about the alternate end? Not the alternate.
No, this is news to me. So there's another ending to this movie.
So in the original ending,
it doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah. So like for the first week or two that it came out, this was the ending it had, and then Kubrick's like, nope, I'm going to change that ending, and he changed it, and so this is now the end. And I think he had a deal where like whatever the final cut was, they destroyed everything else, so nobody could ever recut the movie in any other way.
And for people that are younger, remember back in this time period, movies were literal film reels that were delivered to theaters and traveled around. So for a long time, you would have like weeks where the movie would just be playing in New York City, which is why he could edit it because it hadn't. You go into wide release slowly over time, and movies would spread out around the world.
But in this ending, they're recovering in the hospital room, and the hotel manager shows up, and he informs them that they couldn't find the body of Jack, and then he gives the boy the ball that he found in the hallway, which again, having that hotel manager be the one who hands him the ball, I mean I don't even know what that means, but it definitely changes everything if that's because it suggests that he was maybe the one that rolled the ball to Danny potentially. And that he was more involved in all the stuff that was going on.
Wow, that's super eerie.
Yeah.
Well, and the fact that it's still a living horror, I feel like at the minimum with The Shining, you feel like 2/3 of that family escapes. They're gone. They're free and clear at the end of the movie. It feels like it's pretty unambiguous that they're the hell out of there. But Jack gets left behind. But the fact that it's able to kind of still reach out into their lives afterwards is unnerving.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would agree with that. I mean,
it's a darker ending, definitely.
I don't know why he decided to change it, but it's interesting that he did.
To compliment Kubrick on a really cool thing he did, a change he made from the book to really mess with the audience, because the book was hugely popular, so many people that had saw this movie when it first came out and read the book. But basically, Halloran, the cook, he survives in the book. He does show up, he rescues them, they all get away on the Snowcat together. And so basically, if you were someone that saw this opening night in 1980 and you read the book, you're like, I know what happens, so I can only be so scared. When Halloran takes an axe to the chest, it's like, all bets are off. You don't know what's going to happen now.
Okay.
That's cool.
That is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Well, and I love that the movie, and really great horror movies, because Psycho did that too, where it really fools the audience. And Sixth Sense did that as well. It fooled the audience. Yes. Really masterful.
Yeah, I was 100% fooled by Sixth Sense. I was not one of those people.
Oh yeah, I was taken.
Yeah.
I did over my head, and it's total mind blow at the end. And I love that the movie ties it together for you. It connects all the dots.
Yeah.
And you're just like, oh my God, you're so much smarter than me, M. Night Shyamalan. And that was the last time literally anyone on earth said that.
Well, if he had just quit with the twist endings, I think it would have been better.
If that man died in a car wreck, then he'd be remembered as a legend today.
Well, some people like what's the other movie of his that some people like? Is it Unbreakable? Is that the name of the movie?
Unbreakable is probably his second most popular one. Yeah.
And I've heard people like Signs.
No one watched that because
Signs
was
is
super
awful.
Popular.
Was it? I haven't seen Signs, so I don't even know.
The first half of it is great. You're like, wow, this is really atmospheric and exciting, and then the ending is just it's so bad.
I have heard about the ending. I know that the ending is very questionable.
So bad. The thing is that Shyamalan is a fantastic director, and he's sometimes he can write, and a lot of times he's a terrible writer. Just flat out terrible. It's like if he would just have other people write screenplays and he directed them, I feel like
he's just that much too vain to make that happen, though.
Exactly.
Lady in the Water is a great example of that. If I ever needed to point to a movie where I'm like, this is why this guy fails now. Lady in the Water. Oh man, it's got such a good beginning. It's so creepy and atmospheric, and Paul Giamatti.
That movie.
You should love the first half of it though, because the first half is really brilliant.
Every minute of that.
That's fine.
Every moment of that movie.
I really loved the first half of that movie, and then the film critic is wrong, and so everything goes to hell. It's like, no.
Yeah, the film critic was when it really got too much. That was when it was, and then the writer writing something important that the world needed.
So important.
Yeah, it was very.
This is something very.
And he looked at a little bit like M. Night Shyamalan. Oh, wait, wasn't it M. Night Shyamalan?
Literally M. Night Shyamalan. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not talented enough to write a story that is the one that will change the world, but I'll write a story about me writing a story that's going to change the world.
It's the greatest song ever, right?
The tribute. This is Tenacious D.
This is not the greatest movie in the world. This is the greatest movie in the world.
It's about me writing the greatest movie in the world. Maybe that's why the Lady in the Water sucked, because he needed to have it framed in a bad movie. So
there you go. Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know.
No, anytime you get into something where they're attacking the critics in a movie or TV show, it's like, okay, you guys are just venting your, I don't know, you're doing, it's like you're not trying to entertain us anymore.
I don't like when shows get meta. That just irritates me. Like when they're talking about something, but they're really talking about the show. That bothers me.
It can work. It can work, but it's been done
I don't
so
need it.
much in the last couple of decades. It's really hard to do anything good with that.
I don't ever need it. If nobody ever does that again, that's like the one thing that, like, anytime it happens.
But wait a minute. What if we made the movie about the movie? Just slap him. Slap him in the face. Whatever coked out producer suggests that, just shoot them out of a cannon.
Especially because eventually the context of the movie passes, and it's just, I don't know, it's just
well, I don't know if you guys watched She-Hulk, but the last episode of that, she literally comes out of the screen and goes into the writer's room and criticizes all the writers for it being a cliche Marvel movie, and the writers of the show, it's so brilliant, we dissected what's terrible about Marvel. And
wait,
like,
did that happen?
That happened. That's
that
the
really
final episode of the show. And my point being, you were okay, it's one thing for us as losers on a podcast to rip apart movies and TV shows and stuff. You've been given a Marvel TV show to show what you can do, and all you're going to do is go, look how stupid Marvel movies are. Look at
how bad everyone else.
Isn't this dumb? But we're going to have on the last episode, we're going to tell you we did this dumb on purpose as to show you how dumb it is. It's like,
so as the guy who doesn't like Marvel stuff, would that then mean that I would enjoy this show? Or
it's meta. Well, it's meta. You're going to hate it because it's meta.
Yeah.
So,
okay,
you know.
So yeah, they lost me at the meta. But maybe I agree with them in spirit if they don't like Marvel movies.
It's a terrible show.
I didn't have a problem with the first 35 Marvel movies. I was pretty much on board. Now I've just kind of gotten to the point where I can't keep up.
I can't.
Like, there's another Black Panther movie, and Black Panther's not going to be in it. What the hell is it going to be about?
Yeah,
you know,
I don't know.
Ant-Man 3. There was 2 other movies of Ant-Man.
Here's the question: Is this is going to be a really stupid question, but is the Transformers movie considered a Marvel movie by any chance?
Oh God, because it's a Marvel property, isn't it?
No, I don't know.
There were Marvel Transformer comics, I think.
Yeah,
there were comics of some variety.
Yeah, Marvel and Sunbow did the cartoon.
So I file Transformers in a similar realm as.
But no, they're not. Well, there's the MCU. They are not part of the MCU. Okay. So that's
Iron Man.
So there's a lot of Ghost Rider isn't part of the MCU.
I think I've
but
seen.
He clearly is a Marvel character.
I think he is part of it now. I think they brought him in one of the TV shows, or I forget. I seem to remember he made a
TV shows are
somewhere.
doing weird stuff with canon. Apparently, Kang the Conqueror was in one of them. Okay.
Yeah, he was in the Loki show. What was funny is that
Doctor Doom. Like, what did he do?
Oh God, Kang! Yeah, the Kang thing was not good. I'm not
only
looking
seen
forward to
Iron Man
Kang.
1 and 2. That's like the limit of my.
You're good. You've seen enough.
Bits of
I only liked the original Hulk movie, the one that was.
Hulk movie. I liked the first.
That's
Hulk
the only one I watched.
Oh, I saw that one too. I did see that one too, and I did enjoy that. Yeah,
it was the Hulk. You know, he was hulking it up.
I still would take 70s Hulk over what that was, but I did enjoy that.
I don't know. He was really big and chunky. Like he was a hulky Hulk. He was chunky.
I like real guy Hulk. I think that's like, I don't know, more. You know,
get your CGI out of my Hulk.
No, it's just.
I just want to see a huge, shirtless, muscular man. I don't want to see a cartoon.
No, but like when I grew up, we had like live action Wonder Woman and.
Give me muscles I can feel.
Wonder Woman holds up. I love live action Wonder Woman. I love when she spins around and transforms.
Yeah, Linda Carter.
Linda Carter is great. She's quite a physical presence, and she has 2 huge talents. Let's move on.
Yeah, but
shut up.
I don't know. But I'm just not into superhero stuff generally.
The Shining, people.
Yeah. Well, we're meandering. We do this at the end of the show.
Yeah. This is if you came here for The Shining, you can leave. If you just came here for random crap, hang around.
But anyways, So I guess final thoughts of this movie. Honestly, this movie is a little bit too what's the word? It's a little bit too literary for me, I think. As a horror fan, and I think that's why. Really? that's why it's not my favorite horror movie and not my favorite.
Well, here's my what's your favorite horror movie then? Like, if you had to just throw one out on the wall, like, what are your favorites?
I mean, that's tricky. That's a tricky.
Sure.
Like, down to really think about it. But I know that this is not it.
Right now, if you had to like give someone a recommendation, like
I don't know, The Howling is really high on my list.
Howling is
awesome. A really high movie. I love Bride of Frankenstein. I love Nosferatu.
Man, Bride of Frankenstein was great. I'm so glad you made me watch that.
Yeah, I loved that one. I love I love a lot of Hammer movies. Those I think are great. I love Candyman. Candyman might be my favorite.
Candyman is great.
Yeah. And that's I think a pretty high level horror movie, but it's not like this is like literary fiction level horror. Do you know what I mean? It's like a different. This is and I think the reason, and again, I'm not a Stephen King fan, so it's not like I'm offended on Stephen King's behalf that he doesn't like the movie, but I am a little bit bothered. And I love Kubrick, don't get me wrong, but I am a little bit bothered that he bought the rights to a Stephen King novel, and then he's like, no, I'm going to bring in this literary person to make it more literary. And it's kind of like, I don't know, it feels like you know what I mean?
Well, no. The thing is, honestly, would agree the book is more literary because it's a character story. It's very much about Jack Torrance's character, his personality disintegrating. So I would say the book is actually more literary, and he made the movie less literary to an extent because there is. I mean, in the sense of like literary, like it's a book that you would read in a college course. Do you know what I mean?
It's sort of a liberal arts kind of thing.
Yeah, like not like I get that there was a character. Like I love character studies, but what I mean is like it's
more culturally literary.
It's like it's got like a kind of an elite. There's like an elitism in it that I feel like I don't get that vibe from Stephen King, even though I'm not a Stephen King fan.
I'll agree.
I'm never going to complain that he's like an elitist.
With that.
Yeah.
I just don't think the elites own literature. That's all.
No, I agree with you. But you know what I mean when I create that. But that's what bothers me about it is it's like, hey, you have a great story, I'm going to use it, but now I'm going to like make it better because I don't think it's as good as it could be. You know what I mean? That's what it feels like. He was maybe saying. You know what I mean?
Well,
I don't know. There's something about that aspect to it that irritates me a little bit, both on behalf of Stephen King, who again we've established I'm not a fan of, but I still sort of.
But I think that you and Stephen King would like drink a beer together at the same bar.
He's a
when you say not a fan, you're just not. Have you read any Stephen King?
No, I haven't read. I've only read a few of his short stories, and I haven't like sat down to really read his novels. And
his short stories are the best stuff. So
I like plenty of the movies. I like plenty of the movies that his stuff is based on, but I've never felt like after I've watched one, I've got to go read that book. That's just, that's just
they're very different experiences. Yeah. If you've got Skeleton Crew, you probably have the best single thing that King ever read. Wrote.
Yeah. Okay. Skeleton Crew and Night Shift. That's if you've read that. It's good
and enough. It's not like the man's not a genius. Like I've read a lot of his novels. Like It is one of my all-time favorite books. It's absolutely brilliant masterpiece. But like honestly, like if I'm gonna read King, I'm probably just gonna reread Skeleton Crew. My favorite thing he ever wrote was the Ballad of the Flexible Bullet, which I think is in Skeleton Crew. It's unbelievable. Talk about
those are the only two Stephen King books on my shelf aside from On Writing are Skeleton Crew and Night Shift. That's it.
And the other half of that thought was just that there's that, and there's also just there's a point with certain horror movies where they kind of get too good for horror, if that makes sense. And so this movie is really, if it's not crossing that line, it's really, I would say it's crossing it.
I would say an interesting
Kubrick. So
an interesting. Go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead because I pretty much
fight you two. Nerd fight.
No.
No. I want to see what Adam has to say.
Yeah, I also want to see what Adam has to say. You're outvoted, Adam.
Oh, I forgot. No. Let's see. What was I going to say? We were talking about. Man, I lost my train.
I was saying like it's like too good for horror and.
Oh yeah, I was going to say an interesting thing about this movie is that it basically is in a lot of ways very mild as 80s movies, horror movies around this time were. So I saw it very young. I was probably like in middle school or something when I saw it. One of the first horror movies I saw because. Compared to like a slasher film or something on paper, it looks like, oh yeah, this is something you can watch, but it's so much scarier than most the stuff that is gorier and in theory more objectionable for young people. So I it's just an interesting juxtaposition with this movie.
But yeah, so I don't know. It's just sometimes I get a little bit. I react a little bit to horror movies.
Well, I think you're reacting to the sort of cultural aspect of this movie, the attitude that it has. Because you're right, this is more of a film and less of a movie.
Yeah.
You know, I think with horror, I was watching Halloween Ends with a friend of mine recently. Went to the theater and watched it, and I got this vibe from it. Right when they get to about the midway point in that movie, they like go to a bar and they're like wearing Halloween costumes, and I recognize a lot of the actors in that scene, and I was like, it feels like coming home. You know, it feels like going like whenever I like watch horror, almost all horror. It's a small industry. It's kind of a niche within the greater film industry, and like there's a familial energy to it. Like we all kind of love the same things. It's one of the only surviving like micro cultures, you know, like subcultures.
Yeah.
Like the horror subculture is still alive. A lot of other subcultures got kind of like co-opted, like even the gaming subculture, like the role-playing game subculture, got like really co-opted by Hasbro and all this crap. Horror subculture, it's too gross. People just don't ever really like. People are just like, ugh, only on Halloween. Like nobody can seem to turn a dime from it in a way that makes it corporate. So
one
like,
place nerds hang out where no one else still wants to hang out with them.
It's finally found something gross enough that the normies will fuck off. And this movie doesn't have that feeling, right? You don't have that feeling of, oh man, look at all these references. Bruce Campbell's in this one. Like none of that. None of that is in this movie. It really feels like some auteur asshole was like, I will show these fools how to make true horror that terrifies the soul. Like there is that about this movie. Like you can't really divorce that.
But it is a good movie, so I feel like I can only say so much in that direction. Like I said, I love Kubrick. It's just I would much rather see him. I don't know, not take. I just want
Rob Zombie to direct it. Is that still wrong?
No, I don't like Rob Zombie. So like don't read me the wrong way.
I could be the only guy who hates that.
Rob Zombie's The Shining would be a great movie.
I saw that movie. He had a movie that's set in Salem. I can't remember the name of it. Oh God, I tried to watch it, and like the first 5 minutes, he's got a coven of witches, and I'm just like,
yep.
Well,
to the point, that man. To the dumb, stupid point.
Yeah.
But I don't know. No, I just like I love 2001. I love Kubrick's, work there. I love him in A Clockwork Orange. I loved Spartacus is one of my favorite movies. And again, that doesn't have like the Kubrick feel because it's like a big, huge Hollywood thing. But I like his movies a lot. But something about The Shining, I'm a little uneasy with, just because it's sort of like, well, you're like roaming in.
Stay in your neighborhood, college boy.
Yeah. It's I don't know.
It is
like it's I people who love it, I can't argue against it, and I like it. I just can't, I can't give it the 10 rating. I have to always give it a 7 or
Yeah, I also agree that there is something about this particular film that is a little snooty. And as a result, it is an imperfect horror movie. Because I think the perfect horror movie, the closest you can get to perfect horror is something like Nightmare on Elm Street or Alien, which still have that kind of horror movie vibe. They feel like they're rubbing shoulders with other horror movies. This one is definitely the weird kid in class.
And Alien is very like high quality movie. It's just that it's still there's I don't know, there's like a level of filth to it.
Squicky in a way. Yeah, there's a level of gross to that movie. That this movie, there's something about this movie's vibe that it feels like it's wearing those long surgical gloves the whole time. It's just not quite to the point where it's like visceral. There's nothing, even though there's like there's literally a lake full of blood that comes out of a what do they call those things? Elevators? I literally work in a hotel and I can think of the word elevator.
Yeah, elevator.
Also, by the way, this movie hits way different if you're the night shift on a hotel. Just throwing that out there. Every time I go, like I've been doing the stairs lately because of that stupid blood elevator.
It's a very creepy movie. Like it is definitely very scary, and that whole idea of being a family alone in a hotel all by yourself is definitely creepy. Like there's no question about that. And again, I can't deny the filmmaking. The filmmaking is great, and I don't. It's not like I hate the movie. I just have this little doubt about it. The same doubt that made me not want to go see The Witch. That same sort of.
You loved
thing.
The Witch, though. We should probably all watch that one in one of our little podcasts because, like, you really enjoyed that movie.
That's a great movie.
I did. I really did. I was surprised. I think part of why I liked it was because it connected so well to New England in an authentic way. But again, there is also a part of my soul that's like, well, I'm also not a fan of like this whole folk horror thing that's going on. That this is a part of, like there's a piece of me that's very resistant to it. So,
Oh, the warring tribes of your soul.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, my soul is torn asunder by it. But
our final thoughts what lies for this movie.
I would say
we could talk about this movie for a long time. And that speaks to just how fantastic it is. So would you recommend The Shining, Brendan?
I would recommend it. I would highly recommend it. I think that I think it's undisputably a classic movie. So regardless of my opinions in all those realms, it's undisputably a classic, and it's had a massive, massive impact on the culture. So I think you have to see it just to understand all those references to it. And the filmmaking is, it's like Kubrick. Like I feel like this is like, I like the movie Full Metal Jacket, but I feel like by Full Metal Jacket, Kubrick had kind of lost a little bit of touch with who the people he was filming for. And this feels like the last movie where he was still, I don't know, he was really firmly planted.
Yeah, Kubrick drifted away from his own humanity a little bit as his films continued. Because Eyes Wide Shut's another one where you're like,
well, humanity's not the word that leaps to mind when I think Kubrick. I think, like 2001 is like the least human movie possibly ever made, but it's just fascinating. I mean, is that a human movie? I mean,
absolutely.
There's almost no soul to that movie. And I love it. It's one of my favorite films, but I would, it's sterile beyond belief. The most fascinating character is a robot, right? Like it's a, it's and the humans don't even emote at all. It's the apes have more emotion in that movie than the humans.
I loved the apes in that movie so much. God, what a brilliant movie that was.
But yeah, I just don't think he cares as much about people as ideas. I feel like he's that kind of filmmaker.
Fair enough. We all have our manias.
And I don't think movies have to be about people. I think they can be about other things. I think that's fine.
And in this case, it was literally about a black, completely inexplicable obelisk. God, what a wonderful.
No, it's explicable. It's
sure it is.
It's because it comes from the Arthur C. Clarke story. So he and Arthur C. Clarke wrote 2001 together.
The reading for the film,
and it was based. on what was it? The Sentinel? Was that the name of the story?
The Sentinel is the original short story, which
I absolutely refuse to read it.
It's a good story.
It's so good.
Yeah,
it's very different. Because basically the concept, it's the opposite of the movie, really. Because basically these astronauts find this machine on the moon that basically has this force field around it, and everyone's trying to figure out how to get this force field to get to this machine. They eventually manage to shatter the force field, and the device, all it's set up to do, if anyone breaks this force field, it sends a signal into deep space to warn somebody that life on Earth has reached the moon. Yeah. And that's like the end of the story. And it's just like, is that a good thing or a bad thing that just let somebody out there know?
And in 2001, the book, and in the movie too, it's just not explicitly stated, the obelisks are that same kind of thing, except in this case, what they do is they help accelerate human evolution and bring us to a higher level. So that's why the apes are able to master technology from.
Oh man, it's almost like if you watch the film, it clearly indicates that as the apes evolve to the use of tools whenever they encounter the obelisk, and again to more sophisticated tools when they encounter it on the moon. I mean, like, I don't need a supplementary reading to let me interpret this. I understand.
Like I'm saying, the Sentinel isn't telling you what happened in 2001. It's just a good story with a very different.
Because I thought you were saying that you didn't know what it. I thought you were saying that it wasn't clear, so that's why I was.
No. What I mean is like, okay, the purpose of the obelisk is to be something that is puzzling. It's an enigma, you know, and we are meant. it in the metaphor of the movie and in the reality of the movie to us as an audience is something that we have to work to get something out of. That is its function.
Absolutely.
It is a machine that makes human beings be more creative. I want that. I don't want someone in a hyper literal Wikipedia to tell me this is what the obelisk did. It was done at this point. No, don't.
Okay, do the work. No, that's fine. But I thought you were complaining that 2001 was like obscure about it, and that was a problem.
No, it's super clear.
Okay, yeah, I think everyone gets 2001.
Yeah. Okay.
It's really not that ambiguous. It's almost nothing happens in the movie aside from that obelisk and Hal.
Well, if you read the novel, you'll know what the ape's name is.
I don't want to read the novel.
You'll know the ape's name.
I don't want to know the ape's name. I don't want them to have language. I want them to ook and use a hammer.
I don't think he has language. You just know he has a name. That's all. He has a name.
God. I hate that the concept of names predate the concept of language.
I mean, I could be wrong. It's been a long time since I've read it, so maybe they have language, but I don't think they had language in the book. I think they just had names, which was probably just purely a function of needing to keep track of the different apes in the story. I don't know.
I enjoyed Thundar the Barbarian. It's my response to this entire conversation.
I don't know why this conversation is irritating you so much.
Anyway, let's move on.
Okay.
Adam, would you recommend The Shining?
I would. Yes. Yeah, really the only criticism I can come, it's the one people make that I know that the characterization of Jack can be kind of weird, but it doesn't ruin the movie in any way. And in fact, there's different ways you can read it where it's valid in its own right. So yeah, I would totally recommend The Shining.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that there's, because I feel like Jack's a person who is flawed and is ultimately overcome by his flaws. Like
that's true.
He makes clear, deliberate choices to emphasize those flaws because it's easier and more gratifying for him in the short term. Like, I don't feel like he's doomed or damned or there's a predetermined, like, he's evil. It's like, no, the guy was on the slope and he didn't have a lot of good in him, but he had some, and he chose to fail.
Well, yeah. Well, that's the thing is,
he didn't even do his caretaking duties.
The difference between Book Jack and Movie Jack is that Book Jack, you feel like there's a chance he's going to make it when you're reading the book, and like Movie Jack, it's like Movie Jack's never. He's going the wrong direction. He's just going the wrong direction the entire.
Yeah, there's like that one moment.
A valid choice.
There's like the one moment in the morning when she brings the breakfast where it looks like maybe, maybe,
yeah,
but then like 2 minutes into the conversation, you're like, no.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Well,
so
it's really the film shows us the methods that he uses to approach life are fundamentally flawed and dooming.
Exactly. I agree with that completely.
He's a resentful person. He blames her for all of the problems that seem to be of his own making. He doesn't seem to have a realistic grasp. Like he also maybe you can shed light on this from the book, Adam, but it seems like he is like failing at life really badly.
As I told you, he just punched out a kid at school and got fired from his fancy private school job and desperate to find work to keep his family alive. That's the situation where he is.
Yeah, because in that job interview, he seems pretty eager to please.
This is his last hope.
It's like what he says, like she's a confirmed horror movie fan, and then you go see it cuts to her, and it's like this woman is not a horror movie fan at all.
No.
But yeah, so I guess that's The Shining, and I guess I don't know what we're gonna do next time. It will probably be after Halloween, but it might still be the Halloween
theme
podcast.
I feel like we picked another one, but I've forgotten now. Yeah.
I can't remember. I can't keep any of this straight.
I mean, we did Gremlins and The Shining this month. What do you people want? Come on, enjoy your Halloween.
I can't enjoy Halloween without a podcast to listen to while I trick or treat.
I have to deal with Salem traffic all weekend.
I love that as a young man of 59, you're still trick or treating.
I like
Adam
to
is not
keep a hand in.
I just want to make that clear to the listeners that Adam is not 59.
Yes, I am exaggerating his age somewhat for comedic effect.
Mildly.
that's what makes it comedic, is the mildness of it. If you said 90,
I meant the comedy was mild, but I guess you could take it that way too.
It's searing 59-year-old wit.
Yeah.
It's a slow burn when we get up in years, So, anyways, we'll end it here, and we'll do. I don't know what movie we're doing next time, but we'll certainly.
No one asked me if I was going to recommend The Shining. I'm so sad.
No, you said. I thought you recommended it. Wasn't that?
Well, no, I asked if you assholes recommended it, and you did, because of course you did.
So, do you recommend The Shining, Joel?
Thank you. God, I was trying to get that teed up. I don't know. I don't know if I recommend it. It actually didn't hit me super hard this last time that I watched it. And I think it's kind of a surprising last-minute thing to throw in.
But you said at the beginning of the podcast you love this movie. You think it's great.
I adore it. And that was back when I was young, and I hadn't seen a lot of other
An hour and a half ago?
No. What I mean is, when I watched it the first time, I was in my early 20s. Now I'm 35, and it didn't really spook me as much. I watched it with my girlfriend. She didn't get into it. She was a much bigger fan of the novel. She thought the kid was annoying. She shares that general.
The kid is annoying. The kid is definitely annoying. That's one of my notes. In fact,
I don't think that's a flaw of the movie so much as just. I feel like the kid is an interesting portrayal. But here's
my note. This kid is the most unlikable child in all of movie history.
Man, like. And you're comparing him with heavy hitters like the Anakin Skywalker kid.
I considered that. I considered that. But Anakin at least was entertaining at various points.
I was okay with Anakin Skywalker as a kid. I don't think we ever should have seen him.
I think the problem was we got way too much of Anakin, and we didn't need Anakin in the first place. But,
yeah.
The conceptual problem with the prequel trilogy was during Phantom Menace, like Lucas was defending every choice people hated, but going, but it's just a kids movie. And then all my friends that had kids around that time that had their kids traumatized because they're running around going, I love Anakin. I want to be Anakin when I grow up. And then a few years later, they're watching him burning in lava. And it was like, what are you doing to kids, Lucas?
I want to be Anakin now.
When I was a kid, we saw Bambi's mother die. That's just that's.
And I'm a man now, baby.
Yeah,
It's just weird to put out a kids movie about your fictional genocidal dictator.
Well, Star Wars is kind of weird. You know what it is? It's that because it incorporated Muppet technology, I think that really did muddy the waters around what exactly.
Well, having it muddied towards kids is fine. It was just, why would you focus a movie on the childhood of Darth Vader and make it appealing to kids? Yeah. That's just there's something wrong with you, George.
Yeah, that was on full display in The Phantom Menace. That was a movie where someone should have said no to him much earlier in the process.
What was funny is everybody came out of that movie and was like, I liked it. Like we were trying to tell it, like we were because it was at that point when Lucas could do no wrong before The Phantom Menace came out. He was like as close to a god as you can get in the culture in terms of people hanging on his every word. And Star Wars was like at a pinnacle of everybody liked it, and there weren't people.
Dude, the original trilogy is almost untouchable. And then you watch The Phantom Menace, and you're like, "Oh, that was what you thought. That was what happened beforehand."
I read the first red flag when the big Entertainment Weekly magazine came out beforehand. They were talking about how George Lucas was bragging about, I wrote the entire script on one weekend before we started shooting, and it's just like, what?
Is that true?
Yeah, I don't know if it's true. Lucas claimed it as a good thing that he's thrown it all in one weekend. I mean, I feel like that
must be an exaggeration, because I know I saw footage of him writing.
There were probably rewrites and stuff too. But I'm just saying. But I was like, just the fact he thought that was like clever. I was like I said, I didn't necessarily believe it, but why do you think that's a good thing? Just like scribble this thing down there rapidly.
Maybe he said that so that people would be like, "Hey, he wrote it in a weekend. What do you expect?"
I would rather have a movie like Empire Strikes Back that he did not write. But there you go.
Well, that's probably that's probably the thing with it, is they should have had it be written more like the previous ones were written. But I think again, at that point, I understand why he might have thought he was the man to write the whole thing. Because we all felt that way. Yeah, we all
never
believed
huff
in
your
it.
own hype, dude. That's the worst drug.
Well, everybody believed the hype, is what I'm saying. It was just like,
right, but I mean, he shouldn't have.
You shouldn't have, because
nobody should ever believe their own hype. Lord knows.
Stay behind the curtain.
No, I agree, but I mean, you got to think of it like he's been living off that for how many decades up to that point? You know.
It consumed him. Yes.
Yeah, it makes sense.
I also think he was rusty too when he got back into it. Because what was
well, I mean, because the next movie that he did was way better, leagues better. It was still bad, but it was like a lot better.
Let's face it too. His wife was his editor too. Before his ex-wife was his editor, so he lost a very potent weapon there.
Yeah, no, and she was fantastic.
But so, also, repeating the Star Wars trilogy is also probably like not you know what I mean?
Just well, to be fair, it's been done once successfully, so yeah, it's definitely landing in a bottle.
Yeah, because people tried it the other way too. And so, but I don't know. I don't know how we.
How do we get on Star Wars? I've forgotten how we got
child actors. And this being the worst one. But yeah, no, the kid's annoying because apparently he's really likable and precocious in the book. So yeah, and again, my girlfriend bounced off this movie, and we have our differences of opinion, but I don't think it's invalid to read this as kind of not that impressive. I mean, maybe it's just not. It's one of those things that requires a lot of concentration. I think you kind of have to be in the world of the movie for it to hit, and if you're sort of not willing to commit to it, I don't think that it does hit.
Well, Kubrick movies are very slow. They do move very slowly, and in a horror movie, that could certainly be something that a person might be like, "This needs to pick up the pace," right?
Right, and you could also genuinely dislike the character of Jack. I think that part of the thing that makes this movie get under my skin is that I see a lot of myself in that guy, because I also am a temperamental, self-centered creative with impulse control issues. Therefore, even though I dislike Jack, I understand him because I kind of am him in a lot of ways. And if you're not that kind of person and you're just like, wow, this guy's a total asshole, then maybe you just bounce off of him and there's no sympathy and the horror doesn't ring as true. Because you don't see the damnation of this man as a sympathetic thing. You see it as, put him in hell. It's where he deserves to be.
Well, I think where the horror registers for people is fear for the Shelley Duvall character in this.
Oh, yeah. But if you see her as annoying and terrible.
But I saw her as annoying, but I was rooting for her to survive because I still found her I guess the way I would put it is I saw her as annoying when she was talking to Jack, but when she was conversing with other people, I found her very charming.
That's how I think. I don't find her annoying. I feel like she just, when she's talking to Jack, she's just on eggshells and she's kind of freaking out. I think I actually really like her performance in that for that reason. I feel like she really captures that energy.
I think the performance is good. I have no complaints about her performance.
And it might be to some degree that I'm blinded by my own adoration of this movie, but seeing someone who's never seen it before watch it and not have any kind of emotional reaction to it was a sobering moment for me this last viewing. So would I recommend it? I don't know. I don't know that I recommend this to a modern audience. It might not play as well, which is kind of tragic, I think.
But that's always, like, I recommend so many old-fashioned movies, and, people will be like, Brendan, what's the deal with the sets? What's the deal with this? Why is the movie?
You never know.
I would. Audience. Yeah, on the Jack Nicholson thing, something that's never occurred to me when I was younger is just how old Jack Nicholson is in this movie. Because if you read the book, it's like he's a guy who's just gotten married. He's got a little kid. He's had his first job at a private school that he's like blown up, and it's just like none of the background of this character really works for a guy who's in his 40s. Which is where Jack Nicholson is by this point.
But what you see in the movie, I think, I thought it.
Oh yeah, this is where digging deeper into the movie. It's just a thought that occurred to me. I'm like, I feel like I don't know.
Early 20s guy that's being portrayed by an early 40s guy.
Exactly. But just a minor thought that popped into my head.
We have probably got to the point where most people are listening now, so we should.
Yeah, we could probably stop recording because they're all gone. Right. Let's see. The seats are empty.
All right, so we will end it here, and we will be back next time with another movie.